Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Happy Thursday. Let's get to our morning message and then I'll read the book. Good morning, kindies. Today is Thursday and it is day 50 of learning at home and our last day of learning at home. Yeah, so today's our last day to learn at home, and then your summer begins. I have mixed feelings about it. I've missed you so much not being in school, but I still feel like I'm connected to you, even in our remote learning. So I am going to miss you when we stop our learning from home, but I know we have an exciting summer ahead of us to have some fun outside with our families and hopefully friends soon. So let's count our days. So today's day 50. So I know that means that's 5 full 10 frames and 0 more. And I see that I have some filling in to do, so I don't have 5 full 10 frames, do I? Let's see how many we have. 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46. 47, 48, 49, 50. I think that's kind of cool that we have ended our learning at home days on an exact even number 50. Not 51, not 49, but 50. I think that's kind of cool. So 50 days you learned from home. That's impressive, and you guys have done a fabulous job with that. I am so proud of you, and so is Mrs. Dorman. We are both so proud of how hard you've worked at home and how hard your parents have worked at home. So you guys should really feel good. Give yourselves a pat on the back. All right, I'm going to read to you a book called Matthew's Dragon, and it's written by Susan Cooper, and it's illustrated by Joseph A. Smith. Matthew's Dragon. I have a son named Matthew, and this was his favorite book, but he wasn't able to read it to you. Matthew's mother was sitting on his bed reading him a bedtime story. She had just turned the last page, and so the dragon flew back to his castle and pulled up the drawbridge and went to sleep, she read. She held up the picture of the sleeping dragon to show Matthew and closed the book. Just one more, said Matthew hopefully. All his favorite stories were about dragons. His mother said firmly, tomorrow. She put the book on the bedside table and tucked him in. Good night, Matt. Sleep tight. Matthew sighed. Night. He snuggled down as his mother kissed the top of his head and turned out the lamp. The door closed behind her. In the dark room, Matthew shut his eyes, and then he opened them again. He gasped. When you gasp, you go, so something surprised Matthew. I'm just going to turn this. It seems like a kind of a bright background there. That's better. Okay. The cover of the book on the bedside table was moving gently up and down, and a green light was shining out of the pages. Very cautiously, Matthew reached out his hand from under the blankets, and with one finger he pushed up the cover. As the book opened, the green light flooded into the room, and from the picture on the last page, the dragon sat up and grinned at him. That means he smiled at him. I didn't go to sleep, the dragon said in a surprisingly deep voice. He was a small but extremely beautiful dragon. Matthew recognized him instantly. His skin was bright green. The scales on his back and tail were golden, and his eyes shone red as rubies. I don't want to go to sleep, the dragon said. Do you? Matthew stared at him. No, he said hastily. Oh, no, I don't, not at all. So the dragon from the story that his mom had just read him was coming out of the book. How cool would that be? Come on then, the dragon said. He reached out one shining golden claw. Matthew pushed back the blankets, and suddenly he was as small as the dragon, standing beside him on a sloping white floor that was the page of the book. Dazed, he took the outstretched golden claw, and the dragon swung him up so that he was sitting on his back between the handsome gold-crested head and the curving green wings. Hold tight, said the dragon, and he took off from the bedside table and glided to the windowsill where Matthew's mother always left the window open a few inches to let in the fresh air. Outside the window, Matthew could see a silvery curved bridge stretching into the night. It arched through the air and down to the ground, glinting in the moonlight. It's your drawbridge, he said. So there they are. They're leaving the page of the book. They're going to fly out. There's a little crack in the window where the mom left it open. They're going to go through there onto the bridge. Get off my back or you'll bang your head, said the dragon. Together they slipped out under the window and onto the shining bridge and ran down, down, down into the garden. Whoa, Matthew looks pretty happy, doesn't he? How would you feel if you got to do that? That'd be pretty amazing. When Matthew looked back, the bridge had disappeared. All he could see was the big full moon high in the sky, above the dark shape of the maple tree that grew out of the lawn. So there's the maple tree. And all around him, enormous blades of grass, wider than his hand and higher than his head. Now that he was a very small person, it was not so easy to walk across the lawn. Come on, said the dragon. He pushed boldly through the forest of grass, and Matthew fought his way after him. Dragon, where are we going? For a little bedtime snack, the dragon said happily. So now that they're so tiny, walking through the grass is like walking through a forest. That's how small they are. The grass ended and they were facing a huge empty expanse of gray rocks, each one as big as Matthew's head. Matthew stared. It was the gravel path leading to his father's greenhouse. He started out across it, but he heard the dragon give a sudden, loud shriek, a strange rusty sound like the hoot of a train, and a dragon wing knocked him sprawling back into the grass as a great black shape hurtled over their heads. What's the big black shape coming for them? Oh boy, what's gonna happen? Quick! The dragon pulled him to his feet and they ran, stumbling over the gray rocks. Quick, quick! Matthew tried to look over his shoulder, but the dragon pulled him sideways through a thin black gap between two towering white walls. The black cat, chasing them, big as a horse, crashed into the door of the greenhouse and snarled with rage. Matthew and the dragon were safe inside the greenhouse. The door was open just a crack, just enough for them, not enough for the cat. The dragon said cheerfully, "He thought we were his bedtime snack. Well, we're not." "That's the cat next door," Matthew said. "He's mean. I saw him catch a bird once and play with it like a tennis ball, and then he killed it." "Come on," said the dragon. He took hold of a strand of ivy dangling from the greenhouse shelf, and he began to climb up it. Matthew struggled up after him. So there's the ivy that must have been hanging all the way down to the ground, and they climbed right up. Matthew struggled up after him, and when he got to the top, he found the dragon perched triumphantly on the edge of a large flower pot. The pot held one of Matthew's father's dwarf tomato plants, his pride and joy. He had grown 6 of them, all standing in a row and all covered with delicious little cherry tomatoes. "Snack time," said the dragon. He reached up a claw and picked a bright red cherry tomato, which to Matthew now seemed the size of a large grapefruit. Excellent, said the dragon with his mouth full of vitamin C, good for the wings. Matthew had no wings, but he ate a tomato just to be friendly. The dragon ate 6. Then he sighed contentedly and burped. Any sign of the cat, he said. Matthew peered out the moonlit garden. It was much larger than usual, but empty. Nothing moved. All clear, he said. They climbed to the ground again and slipped cautiously out through the greenhouse door. Matthew breathed the cool night air. He smelled honeysuckle. But although Matthew couldn't see it, the cat was still there. Fat and greedy, light-footed and sly, it lurked on the edge of the greenhouse roof, watching, waiting. It saw their moving figures. The dragon looked prickly, it decided, but that other one looked smooth and tasty, a very nice mouthful, like a large mouse. It leaped. Matthew shouted in terror as the diving black shape knocked him to the ground, trapping him under one fierce paw. He was caught. He couldn't move. He stared up, horrified, into the gleaming yellow eyes, the grinning mouth full of pointed white teeth. The cat crouched, triumphant, gloating. First it would play with this creature like a tennis ball, and then... Yikes. Knocked end over end by the cat's jump, the dragon turned a final somersault and landed on his feet. He stood still, watching the cat. His eyes began to glow, red as cherry tomatoes, and he took a deep, deep breath, and he began to grow. He grew, and he grew, as big as the cat, as big as the greenhouse, as big as the house. He towered over the garden. His great shape darkened the sky, blotted out the moon. He was so huge that neither Matthew nor the cat knew he was there. Lying terrified between the cat's paws, Matthew knew only that a great golden claw came down out of the sky, hooked itself into the belt of his pajama pants, and lifted him upward. The cat arched its spine, hissing. So what happened? The dragon got really, really big, and he saved Matthew. Look at how big he is. Look how little the person looks down there in the house, huh? The dragon swung Matthew up onto his back and sit on his scaly neck between the handsome gold-crested head and the curving green wings. Then he reached his golden claw down again and picked up the cat. He swung it to and fro, slowly, 20 feet in the air. The cat yowled, terrified. The dragon went on swinging, and the yowling became a shriek. Light streamed across the dark lawn as Matthew's father opened the back door of the house. "Go home, you stupid cat," he yelled. High on the dragon's back, Matthew held his breath, but his father saw nothing. The dragon was so big now that he filled as much of the sky as the tall maple tree that grew out of the lawn. The back door closed. The dragon swung the yowling cat over to a big barrel that collected rainwater from the greenhouse roof. He dropped the cat in with a splash. Matthew cheered. Well, they took care of that cat, didn't they, huh? "Hold on," the dragon said, and he flew. Higher and higher he flew in the night, curving round and along and around in a long rising spiral. His green wings spread huge and silent. The stars grew brighter as he rose closer to them. Far below, the lights of Matthew's town were spread like bright necklaces, glittering, and as he flew, the dragon sang. So those are all the lights from down in the town, and they're way up in the sky, flying together. He sang a long, wordless music, like the singing of the wind, like the singing of the sea. Matthew clung to his gold-scaled neck and listened in delight, and gradually he began to hear other voices, faint, growing, joining in. He peered out at the moon-washed sky and saw stars that were not stars, moving lights that grew larger and swooped closer. He saw then that they were dragons. Look at all those beautiful dragons. While I read this page, look at them and see if you have a favorite. See if you can find a favorite that you really, really like. From every part of the sky, the dragons came flying, turning, banking, sweeping over and under Matthew's dragon as if to greet him. All the time their voices rose and fell in unison, mysterious, beautiful, filling the sky with dragon song. And not one of them looked the same as any other. They were all colors and shapes and sizes. They were red dragons or green, silver or gold or steely gray. There were dragons with spiny iron claws or dragons feathered soft as rainbows. For these, Matthew realized, were all the dragons ever put into the world of story. So these were all the dragons that had been in stories that he and his mom had read. And they were all coming to life for him. Did you find a favorite? There's Matthew on his dragon. They're really cool looking. Oh, this page is one of my favorites. I'm going to show the full page to you when I'm done reading because it's so cool. Every dragon ever imagined was here, swirling around the sky. Every dragon that ever was. Matthew lay with his arms around his own dragon's neck and laughed aloud. They were all different, and he recognized them all. The horizon tilted as his dragon banked left and then right, and like great gleaming birds, all the other dragons swooped about him in a shifting cloud. All right, this is so cool. Look at all of these dragons. Have you found a favorite yet? My favorite was always this blue one. I always thought that was such a pretty color dragon. That one's kind of funny. Then their music began to fade, and they fell into a line they fell into lines that they were flying in the long, wonderful arrowhead shape in which wild geese fly, or wild ducks, or swans. So here's the line now, it's starting to line up and form a V. The long V of their arrowhead filled the whole sky, and Matthew and his dragon flew at the tip, leading all the rest. Matthew's dragon lifted his golden-crested head and called out with the same long dragon call that Matthew had heard before. The long, rusty hoot, like the sound of a distant train. One by one, the other dragons hooted in return, calling in farewell, and one by one they banked away and disappeared into the wide sky. The dragon looked over his shoulder at Matthew. Now, I think I might go to sleep, he said. How about you? Here he is. Matthew's waving goodbye to the dragons. Matthew saw the glimmering curve of the drawbridge coming closer as they dropped through the night. Suddenly he gave a huge yawn. Well, maybe, he said, as they came to the shining bridge that led to Matthew's bedroom. All at once they were the right size to walk across it and in through the open window. From the windowsill, Matthew glanced down at the house next door, and on the doorstep he saw a very wet and sulky cat licking itself. He grinned. Thank you, dragon, he said. Thank you. They were very good tomatoes, the dragon said. So Matthew climbed into bed, and Matthew's dragon climbed back inside the book and curled himself up into the picture he had come from. Night, dragon, said Matthew. Good night, Matthew, said the dragon. See you tomorrow. And Matthew closed the book very gently, and they both went to sleep. that's the end. I hope you enjoyed it. I bet Maddie enjoyed it. Huh, Matthew's dragon? All right, bye everybody. Farewell. Have a wonderful summer. Mwah.